very informative a lot of the time.
668, you're going to have to get closer to your microphone so I can understand you.
Sorry. I said, awesome, you're a theist. As a general rule, I like this. I find you guys quite informative. And I like learning the differences, even though I'm an atheist. I like learning the differences between the different sects of Christianity. Can I just ask you what type of Christian you are? Are you Orthodox or Presbyterian or?
No, I'm a conservative, fundamental evangelical.
Oh, okay. And can you please just, even though I know Jack just gave a brief summary of your position, can you say it in your own words so that I know where we stand?
Yeah, let me try to respond to you. I'm going to have to leave in about a little more than 12 minutes. I have a family errand that I have to run.
What a surprise.
Okay.
Don't pay him out.
Hold on a second. I got my timer set up here. Hold on. Yeah, just so you should know, 668, or I don't know if that's your screen name. Let me see.
No, my name is Alicia.
Oh, okay, Alicia. Just should you should know, Angstreich here is a well-known stalker of mine on Pal Talk. He's been reprimanded even by the regular atheists on Pal Talk for having mental problems and stalking me. So you should just know what the situation is there.
Have you been reprimanded for dodging questions, Evolution False? Have you been reprimanded by the atheists for dodging questions?
Did you ask? Do you have a question, Christopher?
I was asking, do you have evidence to support your claim that he's stalking you?
Yeah, it's called experience and observation. If you don't, Christopher, you asked me a question. I'm trying to answer you, Christopher. Christopher, I'm trying to answer you. Okay. Now here's what I would do. If you don't believe my eyewitness or ear witness testimony, do you have Pal Talk installed on your system?
No, I don't.
Okay, what you would need to do in order to verify my observation is to install Pal Talk, the app, not through the browser. I'm assuming you're running Windows. Install Pal Talk.
Okay.
Go to the spirituality section and go to Christianity.
Okay.
Go into there and you will find 2 rooms controlled by atheists. One is believers versus unbelievers. All right, you're writing this down?
Yeah. Okay,
so you go to the Christianity section, believers versus unbelievers. That is a atheist-controlled debate room where there's a lot of theist debate, and the second room is called uncensored religion debate. That is also another atheist-controlled room, but it's a free speech room.
Oh yeah, now Christopher, if you go into that room, excuse me for talking while you're interrupting.
Excuse me for talking while you're interrupting. I'm not done.
If you go into
this
that
is exactly
room,
what happens here. Okay.
If you go into that room,
okay,
what you'll learn.
See, this is what happens. I'm not done speaking. Excuse me for talking while you were interrupting. Now,
sorry,
when you go in,
give me a second. Jack, he's got limited time, so please don't interrupt him. You can unmute, but please do not interrupt him until it's finished so that we can get through this as quickly as possible and hear as much as we can.
Yeah, because I have less than 10 minutes. I have to run a family errand, but I will be back shortly, probably half an hour, 40 minutes.
Oh, good! I can't wait till you get back.
So excuse me for talking while you were interrupting again. So Christopher, yeah, just mute his mic so he doesn't interrupt me again. So Christopher, go into those rooms, tell them that you have met Evolution False, who's going under the nick Darwin's Deity on Google Hangouts, and ask them to confirm or deny that a person by the name of Jack Angstreich persistently and chronically stalks Evolution False, and that you wanted to confirm or deny that that was the case. right? And what I would like you to do, if you're willing to do this, to write down a list of anywhere from 10 to 15 atheists who will come to the microphone and will either confirm or deny what I have just testified to you. And I can say to you with great confidence and assurance is you will find many atheists who will confirm what I just testified to you. Okay?
Great.
I'm done.
Now, Christopher, let me just fill you in on a little bit of what Evolution False is conspicuously leaving out. If you go to a website called stupidcreationist.com, you'll see there's a special tab there, which is devoted to questions that Evolution False can't answer, even though he describes himself as a dominant debater on Paltalk. Now, if you go into Paltalk, as Evolution False suggested, and ask the atheist whether I stalk Evolution False, be sure to ask a follow-up question, right, which is, does Evolution False evade questions that he can't answer, and does he label people as trolls when he discovers that he will lose in debates with them, right? Now, if you don't believe me about this, right, you can look at the questions on that tab, right, and start asking Evolution False those questions, right?
Yeah,
Christopher, you're not
yeah.
actually doing this, are you? Like, you're not actually entertaining the argument of these childish people. Like, you're not actually doing that, are you? Like,
oh well, we can talk about the arguments that Evolution False is put forward.
I'm weighing both of their cases, like, right now at this point, because I have reason to suspect both of them could be wrong in some degree, so I'll see which one is right, or if some of them are right in some regard, and Jack may be a stalker, maybe, possibly. Though Evolution is false, from what Jack has said, it kind of sounds like something you would say, too, like labeling people trolls. So, at this point in time, I'm skeptical of both.
Okay, I'll respond to that. There are a small number of people that I identify as trolls by my own reasoning and my own standard. For example, when I'm in a debate and dialogue under certain situations, if while it's my turn to speak, somebody is chronically interrupting and obstructing the flow of conversation, I consider that trollish behavior. Now, I perfectly understand that we all want to interject when somebody says something that we find which is patently absurd, or they're not supporting their initial foundation, and go on and on. I mean, I understand that. I don't identify that as troll behavior. But we're well aware that in these rooms, especially when there's not a firm moderator, that this goes on. Okay? Now, the situation with Jack Angstreich is I used to dialogue with him a long time ago. After his what I deem to be persistent troll behavior, I let him know on no certain terms that I would no longer dialogue with him because of his bad behavior. Ever since that time, several years ago. All right, I'll be back. I have to do a family errand.
Great. Let me just correct the record there. So there's a simple test to see if what Evolution False is saying is true, which is just to ask any of the questions on that list. Did you happen to go to that page, stupidcreationist.com?
Okay, so the first question is, how can the claim that God is good not be a mere tautology if the good is defined in terms of God's nature?
Yeah, I'll be happy to explain that if it's not clear what's being asked there. Now, see, my point is that Evolution False labels people trolls when he comes up against antagonists that he realizes he's going to lose in debate with, right? He begins to manufacture excuses to evade having discussions with them, right? Now, what he'd like to say is that he's just getting stalked and getting interrupted, and that he's dealing with trolls, and that those are people he just doesn't want to talk to, right? But there's a simple test to see which is the actual true account, right? Which is just to ask him any of those questions and see if you get an answer, right? Now, I've known the guy for years, and it's become a standing joke on Paltalk, as you can confirm. Just go in there and ask anybody whether EF has ever answered any of those questions, right? And you can ask him those questions yourself, and you'll quickly find yourself labeled a troll. Or you'll find that Evolution False has a family obligation and has to step away for a few minutes, or has to go walk his dog or has to go make lunch, right? So I think you may have heard some discussions in this.
Jack, I'll
in
let you
Nadia's
continue in a
room.
sec. I'll let you continue
Sorry?
in a sec.
Okay.
I just want to say evolution falls or Darwin's deity, whichever you prefer. I look forward to you returning and this conversation continuing, and I will try and make sure it stays as civil as possible, okay?
Oh, so I'm looking forward to it too, because it'll be really fun to see Evolution False answer these questions, right?
I'm interested in seeing you and him debate, but later, because apparently he has something to do. I can't confirm if this is true or not.
I'm happy to debate him at any time. I have a standing invitation for Evolution False to debate me at any time. Now, you may have heard some discussion in here because people have encountered Evolution False recently in Nadia's rooms, and somebody named Floyd in your group very astutely observed that Evolution False waits for the white belts, because he's a green belt, right? He waits for the white belts to pick on, right? And then when the black belts come in, he runs, right? I thought that was so remarkable that somebody was able to discern Evolution False's character so quickly, right? To pick up right away that he doesn't actually want to debate the good debaters, right? He wants to debate the low-hanging fruit, right? And then when the good debaters come in and point out that there are objections that he doesn't have a fucking clue as to how to answer, he suddenly has a family obligation, right? Or they're a troll, or I've got to go walk my dog, right? Or he just gets conspicuously silent, right? Now, again, there's a simple way to test whose account is the correct one, right? Because if it's in fact who's posing the objections that's the problem, right? Then all we need is somebody else to pose the objections, right? But you know what he does when that happens? He says, "You're a sock puppet, and I don't answer sock puppet questions." Now, isn't that interesting? Because I don't know if you're familiar with the notion of a genetic fallacy, right, in logic and argumentation, right? But
I've heard of it before. Yes.
Well, it's the idea is that an objection, right, isn't invalidated by who is uttering it, right? So if somebody poses an objection and Evolution False says, "Well, that's not original to you," right? Or some troll told you to ask me that, or some stalker told you to ask me that, right? That doesn't invalidate the objection, right? The objection still stands or falls on its own merits regardless of who utters it. To think that the objection can be dismissed on the basis of who asked it is to perpetrate a genetic fallacy. Does that make sense? So what you'll find
yes,
is...
I've heard. Yeah, this is sounding familiar. I've seen a case of this happening before.
Well, you may have heard the term ad hominem, argumentum ad hominem argument. That's a species of genetic fallacy. So what you'll find, I think, if you try to get answers to these questions, right, what you'll find is that you'll get called a sock puppet, which will be another attempt, another stratagem by which Evolution False tries to evade objections. Now, I don't know if you've been around recently. We've been observing him in Nadia's room running an argument that atheists can't justify recourse to their cognitive faculties, right, on their worldview. He runs a type of presuppositionalist objection, right, that only on Christianity can your cognitive faculties be reliable, right? And he's been preying upon the weak in here, you know, trying to get them to give some kind of account of how they could know that their cognitive faculties are reliable. Now, the interesting thing is that here's what Evolution False has said, right? He said that on Christianity, his cognitive faculties are reliable except insofar as they're corrupted by the noetic effects of sin, right? Now, what that means is that after Adam and Eve partook of the apple in the Garden of Eden, right, and sin entered into the world, and man was corrupted by original sin, man's cognitive faculties, man's ability to reason and to correctly appraise the world was corrupted. So what Evolution False is saying is that the Christian God creates human beings with faculties that are meant to be truth-tracking, are meant to allow them to be able to correctly appraise the world. But the problem is that clearly our cognitive faculties fail sometimes, right? Even Evolution False will have to concede that people make mistakes all the time, right? So they have to put in a codicil, right, an escape clause, which is that their cognitive faculties are reliable, because remember, he wants to say atheists can't rely on their cognitive faculties. They have to borrow from the Christian worldview to rely on their cognitive faculties, but clearly people's cognitive faculties often do break down. So Evolution False wants to say, well, our cognitive faculties are reliable except when they're not, right? Because otherwise he'd be saying something absurd, which is that God creates men with reliable cognitive faculties, right? And so what happens when they're unreliable? How does that fit in with the Christian worldview? Oh, Adam ate the apple in the Garden of Eden, so in fact they're not always reliable, right? But now here's the question you won't get an answer from Evolution False about, right? Here's the question which, if you ask it, you'll get called a troll or a sock puppet, or you'll find that Evolution False has a family obligation, right? And the question is, how is it that he knows when his cognitive faculties are unreliable? Because if he can't know when his cognitive faculties are unreliable and when they're reliable, how can he rely on his cognitive faculties, as he says only Christians can do? Right? So when Evolution False gets back in 30 or 40 minutes, you know, you might want to try asking that question, and then we'll be able to put to the test, right, his story versus my story as to what's really going on here, right? You just ask him that question, and I guarantee you're going to get a lot of double talk or get called a sock puppet, or you'll find that Evolution False is suddenly having technical problems and so on. But you see, if there are no black belt debaters in here like me, and there are just white belts who are not familiar with the argument, not familiar with the objection that I'm raising, Evolution False will keep pressing it, even though he has no answer whatsoever to the objection. Okay, well, I think I've said my piece.
You sure?
Yeah. I just want to get it. I wanted to get it on record for all the viewers here, and just so people can go back and watch this video, that when Evolution False tries to run the stalker troll story, right, that's a pure fabrication, right, that he concocted in order to evade my objections, because he knows that if he tries to debate me, he'll be humiliated.
Okay, well, now that we know that, is there anything else you'd like to discuss? Or you, Chris?
Oh, actually, you know what? I do actually realize there are. Let me post the link in the side chat there. That's another site that hosts the questions that Evolution False isn't able to answer. Let me just actually say a few more points on the stalking thing. Philip, who's been in these hangouts the past few days, he came on to Pal Talk recently and started to ask Evolution False questions about the logical problem of evil and also the evidential argument from evil to some degree. And I think Evolution False quickly began to realize that he was going to lose when debating Philip. So he started to actually post threats, right? He started to actually threaten, send private messages to Philip on Paltalk, telling him, you're going to regret this, right? And Philip can reproduce these messages. He saved them, right? And when I used to go to Paltalk to ask evolution false questions, I used to do it sometimes from my cell phone, right? And when I would get to the mic, mysteriously my cell phone would ring from some unrecognizable number, some unrecognized number rather, and then would suddenly hang up, but prevent me from taking the mic, At first I was confused by this, but then I noticed the pattern. It was always when I was coming to take the mic to address evolution false, right? And I realized, oh, evolution false, he went to the trouble to find out my phone number, right? And to find out Philip's real name and so on. So who is the stalker here, I wonder, right?
Jeff, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Do you guys think you can play nice for a second? I've got to take my dog out so she can go to the toilet.
No problem.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
And there's, in fact, a whole pattern of this kind of behavior with evolution false, right? That he has made threats to people, called them at their homes, right? Well, the person who constructed a version of the website, the person who hosts the stupid creationist website, once she posted a version of that website under the name evolutionfalse.com, she got a call at her home from Evolution False threatening her with legal action, right? Even though there was nothing illegal about what she was doing, right? And even though Evolution False was lying that he would take any legal action even if he could, because then he'd have to reveal his true identity. So there's a whole pattern of behavior of Evolution False actually stalking people, right? So this is a complete reverse of the actuality here. What we have is a completely, thoroughly dishonest debater who goes after weak fruit, right? And when he encounters people who are better debaters than he is, right, who actually go to the trouble to read philosophy rather than just parrot William Lane Craig and other internet apologists, right? He has a whole string of fabrications that he constructs in order to find ways to evade their objections. And as I say, there's a simple way to put this to the test, right? It's just ask him some of the questions